looked at it, you know, I picked up this particular I-beam and held it up to my upper left to look at it with the kitchen light reflecting on the inner surface. And that's when I saw the writing or the symbols of some sort. I thought at first, this is hieroglyphics or some kind of writing like that. It certainly looked alien to me.
This film footage purportedly shows the actual crash debris, carefully cataloged and placed on display. It is shown here for the first time anywhere.
The debris in the film was somewhat different than the debris that I saw on the kitchen floor. Certainly the symbols on the so-called I-beam were much larger. The size of the beams are certainly different. The one I saw was probably greatest 3/8 of an inch in cross-sectional diameter, 12 to 18 inches long. The beam in the film certainly was much larger than this, several inches in cross-sectional diameter. If this is an authentic film, then it could have come from a different portion of the craft. Actually, the material that I saw almost resembled something that could have been blown out through the side of the craft, like there was an in-flight explosion just spreading debris or blowing debris out of the side of the craft.
Even more intriguing than the I-beams with the cryptic symbols is the metal fixture, obviously designed for some being with 6 fingers on each hand.
You wonder if that might not have been some sort of control mechanism, that they put their hands in the grooves that are made for that, and maybe there's some way they can control the craft just by thought transference, by thinking about something with the hands in contact with this plate, that maybe it's some very unusual, very weird control mechanism.
While researching a book on the incident, author Kevin Randall discovered that more people had handled the crash debris than anyone had ever suspected.
I think at last count, I had spoken to around 4 dozen people who handled various aspects of the debris. The most dramatic is the foil-like material that you could wad up into a ball and let it go and it would unfold itself.
They tried to burn it and they couldn't burn it. It wouldn't catch on fire, and they took out their pocket knives and they tried to cut it and they couldn't cut it.
Frankie Rowe had watched as her father, the Roswell fire captain, and his crew played with a piece of the strange metal.
I guess they all had their chance to play with it for a while, and it was laying on the table, so I reached over and picked it up. And I played for it probably about 5 minutes. When you would wad it up in your hand, you couldn't feel it in your hand. You couldn't feel you had anything there. And it would go to a size that was so small that you'd have to look to see if it was still in your hand. And then when you drop it, it spread out all over the table.
I sincerely believe we had the crash of something from outer space, because we still don't have materials that compare with the descriptions I've gotten of the material that was picked up out on the ranch and brought into town.
If there was any doubt that a flying saucer had crashed, Frankie Rowe's father, one of the first at the crash site, had seen the most convincing proof of all. Living proof.
Daddy came in so excited, and he said what they saw was not from this world. There were 2 bodies that were laying on the ground outside of this craft, and that there was one, what he called little person. And he said there's one little person that was walking around, and he said they were still alive. And he said that the other 2 were dead, and that this one that was alive was very sad. My dad would not have gotten excited over a weather balloon. He was not easily excitable. And this is the most thrilled I'd ever seen him in my life. He thought that was the most fantastic thing in the world.
Through his numerous interviews with those connected to the Roswell incident, Kevin Randall has been able to put together a sequence of events from the time the spacecraft and bodies were recovered.
The best evidence we have from a number of eyewitness sources is that the craft and the bodies were brought to Hangar 84 on the Roswell Army Airfield and stored overnight before transport. What we understand from the eyewitness testimony is the bodies were sealed in a large wooden crate kept at the center of the hangar. It's absolutely brilliant what they did. They announced they have a flying saucer, but they've already captured it. They've already got it. There's nothing to see, so nobody goes out looking for the thing. Then they shift everything to Fort Worth. The higher headquarters says, no, those guys made a mistake.